Hey, what is going on, guys? This is DK back at you with another video here for the full breakdown of the NFL Week 3 main slate. Real quick before I get into that, let's go over my showdown lineup from last night in the ugly Jags-Titans game. So this is what I went with. I put DD in the captain with the Jags, D, Corey Davis, Fournette, Mariota, Minshew. So if you guys watched the video, you guys knew I preferred the Jags defense at home. They were $1,400 cheaper, I believe. So they were a big part, a big key to me cashing, and then. Fournette, I preferred him to Derrick Henry just because Fournette was out there almost the whole game, and Derrick Henry is kind of game flow dependent. You saw that when Tennessee got off to an early deficit. They kind of phased out Derrick Henry a bit. And then I put both quarterbacks in there. So yeah, it was a solid night. I didn't go crazy because it's a pretty ugly game, but cashed. So let's see if we can keep it going here for the main slate, which I'm pretty excited about. So, I guess before I jump into it, as of right now, I don't even think I'm going to play cash games for the slate just because I really like, a couple game stacks for GPPs. I'm really liking those builds. So as of right now, I'm probably not going to play cash games. But in this video, I will talk about guys that are cash game playable versus GPP playable. So with that being said, let's jump into it. Again, the two guys at the top I really like for GPPs. This is going to be a really popular game stack, and I like it as one of my favorite game stacks as well. It's Baltimore, Kansas City, and over under like 55. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Really not much else to say. These guys are top tier plays. I'm considering for sure and part of a game stack. So yeah, I really like those guys for GPPs. Even cash game viable too. Don't just cross them off if you're playing cash games. These guys have the most upside by far. And I think there is enough value in the slate to get them in there. So Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, really like both those guys. You can't go wrong with either. As far as like the next tier guys, I'm not really on any of these guys. Like Brady, Dak, Deshaun's okay, Russell Wilson, Garoppolo, Aaron Rodgers. Not really on. I just think there's better plays on the board. Then if we get to this next tier here with Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, really like both these guys. Allen at 5.9, Kyler Murray at 5.8. Josh Allen at home, Cincinnati's defense just got lit up against San Francisco. He's a really good, sneaky rushing upside quarterback. He's just 200 price right now, so I do like Josh Allen. Same thing with Kyler Murray. He's probably my favorite guy in this price range. Again, 5.8K is just too cheap. He hasn't flashed a rushing upside. Carolina's defense has been getting lit up as well. So, I think this game could turn into a shootout. Also, one of my favorite games to stack is Carolina, Arizona. Really like this game as part of a game stack. So, Kyler Murray, I'm all over him as well. Other quarterbacks like Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Wentz, no thank you. Stafford, I'll pass. Jameis is solid here at 5.4. I do like the price tag on Jameis. Again, this is a third game that I'm interested in for game stacking is the Giants and Tampa Bay. Just because Jameis is really cheap. Both receivers and Mike Evans and Godwin are pretty cheap. And then O.J. Howard priced below 4K as well. So you can definitely make a Tampa Bay stack and then run it back like Saquon and Evan Ingram. That's definitely something I'm considering for GPPs. So, I do like Jameis Winston a good amount here at 5.4. Other quarterbacks, Daniel Jones is okay. I would only really play him in part of a game stack. Again, I think he does have some upside here at 5K, but I would just rather pay a little extra for Winston or the extra 800-900 for Kyler and Josh Allen. But I don't mind Daniel Jones. Again, I would really only play him as part of a game stack. Bridgewater, the New Orleans situation, I'm staying away from, whether it be Tyson Hill or Bridgewater. It looks like they might use both. Unless we get clarity on the situation before lock, it's a stay away from me for now. Now, Mason Rudolph, for GPPs, definitely consider, like I said, I've talked about it a few times now, the Mason Rudolph, James Washington stack. I think it's actually going to be somewhat popular. I've seen other people talk about it as well. Again, both those guys played at Oklahoma State. They have a connection. They showed it in the preseason. So if you're a guy that's making a lot of lineups, multiple lineups for GPPs, definitely throw a Mason Rudolph, James Washington stack in there. I think that has a lot of upside. And then finally, Kyle Allen here. We just got confirmation he will start. Cam Newton is out. So he's a guy for cash games. He's fringe cash game playable as well as GPP viable for sure. Flat minimum price. That's great for getting other, pieces in your lineup. So I do like Kyle Allen here at 4K. There's definitely risk. Again, he's a backup quarterback, but he's playing, Arizona's defense, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So Kyle Allen, definitely viable here at 4K. And that's basically it for quarterback. So let's move on to running back. Now for cash games, I usually like getting, 3 stud running backs in my lineup. again, right as of right now, I'm kind of leaning towards just going GPPs. I really like those 3 game stacks I mentioned, with that being Baltimore, Kansas City, which is obviously going to be really popular. Uh, Carolina, Arizona might go a little under the radar, and then the Giants, Tampa Bay. I really like those 3 games as part of game stacks. But yeah, for cash games, it's kind of tough to differentiate all these top backs. I like them all. Saquon, again, Tampa Bay's defense has looked pretty good, but he's matchup proof. Uh, you really can't go wrong there. Again, I do like him as part of the game stack as well. Zeke, I think Zeke's gonna be pretty popular. The only downside, again, I talked about this in my early only video, is if Miami or if Dallas is off to such a big lead that they bring in like Tony Pollard and don't use Zeke at all in the second half. So that's the only concern there. But I really think if that's the case, Zeke will probably get at least 1 touchdown or so and maybe like 100 yards. So yeah, I think Zeke's definitely fine there for cash games. Christian McCaffrey at 8.7, I do like him a decent amount here. I don't really know what the ownership's going to be like on him. I feel like people might get off him now there's no Cam. But, Cam really looked bad those first couple games. So I don't see it that big of a downgrade going to Kyle Allen. So, yeah, Christian McCaffrey here at 8.7, I think is perfectly fine. I do like his upside. I think the ownership dips on him a bit because people will be off him with no Cam Newton. Kamara, I just can't do it with no Drew Brees. I think it goes really, really low owned. So if you want to take like a 1% Kamara and play him in GPPs, I wouldn't mind that, I guess. But not going to be the way that I go. Now, Dalvin Cook, I think, is going to be one of the most popular guys for cash games. I don't mind it at all. A home favorite against Oakland. Oakland's defense just got gashed there by Kansas City, but Kansas City basically gashes any defense. But yeah, I really like the home favorite backs for cash games. So Dalvin Cook at 7.8K. Minnesota, they just want to establish a run. So yeah, I think Dalvin Cook really solid there at 7.8. And same thing with Eckler here at 7.2. He's getting like 75-80% of the snaps. They're utilizing him a bunch in the passing game. The Chargers just love utilizing their running backs in the passing game. And yeah, Eckler has really flashed upside here with 39-25 fantasy points each of the last 2 games. Houston's defense, not too scared about it. So yeah, I think Eckler definitely viable here. I think the ownership drops on him too a bit because the price tag went up, but he's definitely still viable with upside. Le'Veon's a pass for me. David Johnson, I think, is interesting. I do like him as part of a game stack here at 6.8K. I think he's, I think he goes kind of unknown for cash games, but definitely GPP viable. And he's definitely you can play Kyler Murray and David Johnson together. I did that week 1. It worked out for me. So yeah, he's a great pass catching back. This game should be, Carolina and Arizona, 2 of the fastest paced teams in the NFL. So this game could definitely turn into a shootout again. I really like this as part of a game stack. So David Johnson, 6.8K, definitely viable there. Connors is to stay away from me for now. I know he's available, but the knee injury just scares me, so I'm just going to stay away. I don't think it's worth the risk when there's other guys in this price range that are just much better plays. Now, Aaron Jones, I do like him a good amount too at 6.1K. Got 23 carries last time out, and again, a home favorite. Green Bay should get off to an early lead. They just pounded Aaron Jones against Minnesota 23 times. Minnesota's a solid defense. He ran for 116 yards and got utilized in the passing game. So he does have some upside there as well. So Aaron Jones, I do like him for cash games as well as GPPs. That's just too cheap right now, 6.1K. Sony Michel, definitely GPP viable. Fringe cash game viable just for the reason of New England uses 2 other backs in Burkhead and James White. And again, this game could get out of hand very early, so maybe they limit Michel's workload. So that is the concern with Michel. I don't think I would do it for cash games, but for GPPs, 100% viable. Chris Carson right now is a stay away. Again, he fumbled twice there in week 2, and Rashard Penny looked pretty good when given touches. So as of right now, I'm going to stay away and see what the workload is there for week 3. Mark Ingram's, I think, a guy that goes really low owned at 5.7. Kind of had an off week there in week 2. Gets a solid match here against Kansas City. The only downgrade with him is that Baltimore does use other backs, and Lamar Jackson will carry it himself a lot. So that's the only downgrade. But 5.7K as part of a game stack, I don't mind Mark Ingram. I don't think he's the best play, but I think he does have some sneaky upside. Carry-on's interesting here at 5.6. They shipped CJ out of town. They still have Ty Johnson. Looks like they still want to work 2 running backs. So I don't know if Carry-on gets that big of a boost. So for that reason, I'll probably pass. And then this next range is kind of a stay away for running backs for me. Mixon, Breida. I mean, I love Breida as a back, but they're just using 3 backs right now, so I can't do it. Josh Jacobs, no thank you. Samuels, no. James White, no. Now, McCoy's interesting here at 5K. They have him listed as questionable, but he has practiced on Friday, so I think he's going to be good to go. Damian Williams got ruled out, so that's big. With Damian Williams out and McCoy, maybe there's a slight chance that he misses. Then Darwin Thompson there at 3K. I talked about him in my value play video. He'd become really interesting. Even if McCoy plays, I think Darwin Thompson is viable there at the min price, but I wouldn't do it for cash games, but for GPPs, definitely viable. Other backs, these guys in this range. I mean, Carlos Hyde, people have been talking him up. I get it. But I can't feel great about Carlos Hyde. It's just because he doesn't get utilized in the passing game. That's the only downgrade. Now, the matchup also not the best either. So I can't really do Carlos Hyde. And same thing with Frank Gore. Both these backs, Hyde's looked good. Frank Gore's looked okay with no Singletary ruled out too. Again, Frank Gore's been getting talked up. I get it, a home favorite, but they're probably going to utilize TJ Yeldon a bit too. And yeah, I just can't feel great about playing Frank Gore. So I'm just going to pass on both Gore and Hyde. I just don't see the upside in those guys. Other backs, Burkhead again, he's interesting at 3.9K just because the Jets should get lit up here. So I don't mind him. TJ Yeldon's also interesting here at 3.8. I think I would prefer him to Frank Gore if the ownership's going to go all to Frank Gore. I wouldn't mind the pivot to TJ Yeldon with no Singletary. Yeldon should get some work. He's a better PPR back, so I wouldn't even mind taking a shot there in TJ Yeldon if you're making multiple lineups. And then finally, I'll talk about Darwin Thompson real quick. And he's listed at the flat minimum. No Damian Williams. I assume he's going to be the number 2 back now. We might get some clarity here maybe on Sunday, but as of right now, he's definitely not cashing viable, but for GPPs, I think he's worth the risk there at min price. And same thing with a guy that I think goes really low owned. Again, I talked about him in my value play video. Is Ty Johnson with no carrying out of there. He's the number 2 guy. Lions seem pretty happy with this guy. They have confidence in him. He's flashing upside, so I wouldn't mind Ty Johnson there either at the flat min for GPPs. If we move on to wide receiver now, the top guys with Hopkins, Adams, Cooper, Julio, Antonio. There's no Antonio Brown. He's got released. I think all those guys are okay, but right below that is Keenan Allen here at 7K. He's going to be really popular for cash games, but for good reason. This guy's just getting fed targets, double-digit targets each of the first 2 weeks. The Chargers really just utilize him and Austin Eckler, so Keenan Allen is just too cheap there at 7K, so I do like him a lot for cash games if you're playing cash games. For GPPs too, he does have a lot of upside, so do like him as well. Godwin, again, the Tampa Bay receivers with Godwin and Mike Evans. I like the buy low on Mike Evans too. I like both receivers. They're both underpriced here in a juicy matchup against the Giants. I like it as part of a game stack. Again, you can go Winston, you can go Mike Evans, Godwin, OJ Howard, run it back with like Ingram and Saquon, get some cheap pieces in there. I like that a lot. So the two Tampa Bay receivers I like a good amount. Juju I think is okay. Again, I think I'd prefer to play James Washington for like 3,000 cheaper though. Sammy, I do like him a lot at 6.8K. Kind of had a down week 2, but has a lot of upside. Got targeted 13 times still. Baltimore, they're missing pieces in the secondary. This game is going to turn into a shootout most likely. A really high over-under. 6.8K for number 1 receiver and a 55 over-under. How can you not like that? So I really do like Sammy Watkins there at 6.8. Other receivers, the Carolina receivers I think are okay here. DJ Moore as well as Curtis Samuel. Let me go to Carolina real quick. I think a lot of guys are going to be off of him just because there's no Cam Newton. But I think Kyle Allen's a pretty solid backup. Again, this would be risky. Would only really do it as part of a game stack, but I still think those guys are in play. The other 2 Kansas City receivers with DeMarcus Robinson, Hardman, definitely viable as well. If I'm picking between the 2, I'm going to lean towards Hardman. I think he has more upside. I know Robinson had the bigger game. I think he's going to be more popular, but I prefer Hardman there. Josh Gordon, Edelman, they definitely get a boost with no Antonio Brown, but again, like New England should just get off to a really early lead, and then I assume they're just going to pound the rocks. That's the only concern with the New England receivers. The Arizona receivers, you guys know I really like Arizona. Fitzgerald, Kirk, Bird, all playing at over 90% of snaps. It's just a pass-heavy offense. They're still too cheap, so Fitzgerald, Kirk, Bird, really like all 3 of those guys. Sterling Shepard's interesting. We're only going to go there as part of a game stack. I like obviously Saquon and Evan Ingram more on the Giants side, but I don't mind Shepard here at 4.9. Emmanuel Sanders, he is just I know he's 32 now, but he is still looking like a very young receiver. He's just flashing a lot of upside. Denver's just feeding him the target, so he's definitely still too cheap here. I do like him at there 4.8K. Again, Denver should be playing from behind, so should be good game script there for Emmanuel Sanders. Other receivers that I have interest in. Let's see. So Aguilar. So let me go to Philly real quick. I think Aguilar is going to be really popular here. Deshaun Jackson got ruled out, but they're saying Alshon might play. He's listed as questionable. So this is a situation we have to monitor. If Alshon misses, that's obviously a boost to Aguilar as well as Whiteside and Hollins. If Alshon plays, I don't really think that changes Aguilar's role much. He'll still play in the slot. It'd probably be Mac Hollins that gets the short end of the stick if Alshon plays. So that's a situation we have to monitor. But Aguilar at 3.6, I think he's going to be one of the most popular guys for cash games, but for a good reason. 3.6K is too cheap. Should be out there for like over 90% of the snaps. The matchup not the best, but he's just 200 price there at 3.6. Same thing here with if you want the pivot to Whiteside, I do like the pivot off of a really high owned Aguilar with JJ Arcega-Whiteside. He's a big body receiver. He looked really good there in the preseason, so I do like kind of buying low and the pivot with Whiteside over Aguilar. Just because the ownership's all going to go to Aguilar for sure. But for cash games, definitely play it safe and go Aguilar over Whiteside. GPPs, I do like the pivot there. James Washington, again, at 3.5K. I do like that connection with Mason Rudolph. Pairing those two together, really cheap stack. You can almost get whoever else you want in your lineup. So I do like that. Again, if you're making multiple lineups, definitely would recommend doing that in one. Now, Philip Dorsett here is interesting because Antonio Brown just got released. He played on like 90% of the snaps in week 1. So I'm going to assume that's going to be the same for week 2. Unless the game just gets into a super blowout, at the end, he'll probably get pulled. But he's a guy that has some sneaky upside. Look what he did in week 1. 4 catches, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. So don't forget about Philip Dorsett. I think he has a lot of upside here. And the price is way too cheap for a guy that's going to be a starting receiver now. So I do like Philip Dorsett a good amount there at 3.4K. And then lastly, again, I talked about Bird. He's just too cheap right now at the flat minimum price, playing over 90% of the snaps. 7 targets each of the first 2 games. Do like him as a value play, a good amount there. As far as tight ends go, so really like Kelsey here at 7.1. I guess my favorite target from Kansas City probably would be Kelsey. He's just probably the safest option. But you really can't go wrong with any of their targets. Again, I do like this game as part of GameStack a lot. So Travis Kelsey there at 7.1. I do like that a good amount as a spend up. Zach Ertz, same thing here at 5.7. Dallas Goedert's an injury situation we have to monitor. He's listed as questionable. If he plays, be a slight downgrade to Ertz. I don't think Ertz will play 100% of the snaps, so that is a situation we have to monitor. And, if you had the salary, I just think the upside is more with Travis Kelsey. So, again, I don't mind Ertz. If Dallas Goedert misses, that's obviously a boost to him, so that's a situation we have to monitor. Evan Ingram at 5.2. You guys know I like this game as part of a game stack. So I do like him a good amount at 5.2. It's just too cheap for a guy that's, the number 1 receiver right now in this offense. 14 and 8 targets each of the last 2 games. He has a lot of upside, so I do like Evan Ingram there at 5.2. Mark Andrews at 4.6. I like him a lot for GPPs. Again, I talked about him earlier only video. I don't think I could do it for cash if I'm playing it, just because he's playing on like 50% of the snaps. Baltimore uses 3 tight ends. But the matchup is just so juicy. Lamar Jackson loves this guy, so for GPPs, 100%. And a strategy I'm liking for GPPs is the 2 tight end approach. There's a lot of good tight ends. You could pair Travis Kelsey and Mark Andrews together as part of a game stack. You could put Evan Ingram and OJ Howard together as part of a game stack. So I do like that 2 tight end approach for GPPs because I feel like not a lot of people utilize that for their GPP roster construction. But I do like that. I think it has a lot of upside. The tight ends are pretty solid here for week 3. Darren Waller is okay here, 4.1. Again, Oakland doesn't have a whole lot of targets. The matchup not the best, but they should be playing from behind, so I don't mind him. Same thing with Greg Olsen. He's listed as questionable, but I think he'll be good to go. A really good matchup again. We'll be playing the back quarterback, so a little unknown with that, but I still think Kyle Allen can get the job done. So Greg Olsen at 3.7, I still think is viable. I think the ownership drops on him a bit because people are being concerned with no Cam Newton. Other tight ends, I mean, you could take a shot on Hawkinson. Everyone's going to be off him after they burned him in week 2. I wouldn't mind jumping back on the well there at 3.5K. I think the ownership goes really low on him. But that's about it. So, yeah, like I said, I do really like stacking the tight ends as part of game stacks. Again, Baltimore and Kansas City, I like stacking Travis Kelce with Mark Andrews. And then Tampa Bay and the Giants like stacking Evan Ingram with O.J. Howard there. As far as defenses go, I haven't really changed my take. It's Cowboys and Patriots for me. Now, any of these cheap defenses can get you there with a pick 6. There's a lot of variance involved. But if you're playing safe, Cowboys and Patriots for sure. If you need like a cheaper defense, I mean, it's just so tough. I mean, I wouldn't mind the 49ers or the Seahawks at 3.2 there. Again, both going up against backup quarterbacks. So I guess if you're not paying up there, I mean, those would probably be my pivots, or maybe Minnesota too. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts on defense. And I think that's going to do it for today's video, guys. So if you're new to the channel, if you've been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate if you'd like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions, you can leave in the comment section down below. It's also really important to follow me on Twitter. That will be in the description below. I also be live on twitch.tv/DK_DFS an hour before lock on Sunday, breaking down any late injury news that we get and answering any questions you guys have. So I would appreciate if you guys come check out the stream. And yeah, I'll be back for another video breaking down the showdown slate on Sunday night. So I will see you guys then.